Alright, so now we need to fill in the research question table. Now, there's two ways of approaching this. The correct way to do this in a formal research report, which you would do at university, is to first think of 10 questions so that you have something to go research, and then based on that go find the sources. The problem with that approach in this instance is that we only want 3 sources. So it's definitely advisable to have an idea of what you're looking for, especially in terms of the categories, but I find that a lot of people find it easier to first find 3 good sources and then actually think of 10 questions based on those sources. Either way, let's quickly go through the items that you need to fill in over here. So the questions over here, it can't be statements, it has to actually be proper questions. You can fill in the level over here. Now let's have a look at what the level of the question is. There are 4 levels of questions. Level 1 that provides facts, level 2 that gives direction to the investigation, level 3 that supports predictions or changes or alternatives, and level 4 that supports your judgment or helps you to evaluate, critique, or review. Alright, so that feels pretty abstract, so I'll give you examples of exactly the kind of questions that fit each level. You need to, out of your 10 questions, cover at least 3 of the 4 different levels. So even though that wouldn't be ideal, you can literally have 8 level 1s, 1, 2, and 1, 3, and then you'll get your mark. So I wouldn't worry about this too much, but let's have a look. It's actually quite easy if you have examples of the questions. So over here, just pause on this if you would like to use this. Level 1 provides facts and basic information. So I'd say try not to have more than 6 of these, because if it's just this, then it might be a little bit narrow. So these are the kind of questions that fall under level 1. What's the definition? Who invented or discovered, or when does something occur? That kind of thing. Level 2 is analysis and interpretation. So these are examples of that. What are the types? How does it work? What causes it to happen? So you'll find that quite a lot of your questions might end up actually being level 2. So I'd say the majority of your questions need to be either level 1 or level 2. Level 3 and 4 are a little bit more difficult. Level 3 is hypothesizing. It's basically predicting or thinking about what would happen if something else would happen. So in our instance, we could say what would happen if everybody stopped using paper right now. That's a silly example, but you get the idea. You pose a possible scenario and then say what would happen based on that. I find that this is almost the most difficult one to phrase and to actually find the data for. So level 4 is actually a little bit easier. That's where you can actually make a decision, where you analyze and evaluate something and decide whether it's good or bad, whether it's effective or ineffective. And even just saying what are the advantages and disadvantages actually count as a level 4. The questions you ask need to fall under 3 different categories. Now, categories, we spoke about that earlier. It's the same as the subtopics. So we looked at it over here by the topic, where we said we can have a look at the existing problems. So that would be the problem. Community involvement, you could say public awareness, or even just call it community involvement, that's fine. And solutions can be a category or a topic as well. Here are some more though. You could also use, let's see, where are they? Background, problem, we've got impact, costs, and solution. So that gives you an idea of the kind of categories that your questions can be grouped under. You have to have 3 categories at least, and I would say try not to have more than 5. Ideally just stick with 3. So just group your questions under categories. The type of source will probably be internet for most of them, unless there is something you can find in a magazine or a newspaper article. You can also definitely have a look at video sources. There are so many TED Talks about these environmental issues. So the type of source would be internet, news article, magazine, or video. At this moment, I don't think you're already going to know what type of source you need, but it doesn't really matter whether you end up using that type of source. For the moment, this was just to say, where will I start looking for it? Now, the number and the summary of the information can only come once you've actually got 3 good sources. So once you've got the 3 good sources and you see, say for example, you asked here, when did humanity become aware of deforestation? And you found the answer in source number 2, then you can say, type a number of source, it was internet, and it's number 2. And summary of information will then be an answer to the question that you initially posed in a paragraph format.